Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session of Empower. My name is Lisa Bandrew. I'm with the Finance Department of the Scranton Chamber. Before we begin this afternoon session, there's a couple little housekeeping notes. Exits are located in the back and the side of the room. There is Empower staff in the room. Should anyone need assistance, please let us know. Also, I want to remind everyone by now, you should know we're using the WOVA app for Empower. Any questions can be submitted through the app or at the end if you would just like to raise your hand and we can answer them. The sessions are also being recorded and we can view them post Empower. Also, if you take any photos today, please be sure to post them and tag them with the, okay, I can't carry, hashtag Empower 2023. Please remember also, take all your personal belongings when you leave the room this afternoon. I'd like to thank our sponsor today from People's Security Bank and Trust, Jill Zenzel. She is the Senior Vice President and Director of Digital Sales. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jill Zindel. I am Senior Vice President and Director of Digital Sales at People's Security Bank. Whenever the bank asks me to introduce the speaker at Empower, the first place I go to is LinkedIn. Like, really, let's check this person out, right? So I went to check out Dr. Kiesinger's LinkedIn app, and I knew I made a connection as soon as I saw a post that she had that said, "There is no force more powerful than a woman determined to rise." And I was like, yes, this woman gets me. I knew we had a connection. I then used the tools of the mobile conference app and shout out, kudos to the Scranton Chamber for this new app. Phenomenal, love it, great job to all involved in that decision. I messaged Dr. Kiesinger through the app. We exchanged messages, we exchanged phone numbers, we exchanged voicemail messages. I wanted to get to know her a little bit better. So I'm going to share my enthusiasm of our speaker by sharing with you a little bit of her background. Dr. Kiesinger creates personal development trainings in the area of leadership, team dynamics, workplace cultures that thrive, relational health, conflict resolution, stress, and trauma. Dr. Kiesinger is a co-author of Amplify, Women's Leadership Certificate Program, the premier innovative leadership development program for women in Northeast PA. Dr. Kiesinger maintains a robust personal development and executive coaching practice. She takes a multidisciplinary approach to coaching, which includes her expertise in IFS, Internal Family Systems Practitioner. Dr. Kiesinger is a published author, podcast guest, interviewer, and guest blogger. She is published in Thrive Global, Medium, and Authority, and co-authored the book Narrating Midlife, Crisis, Transition, Transformation. Her current labor of love is her keynote speech titled The Vow, and the book manuscript that supports it, The Vow, The Art and Practice of Self-Devotion. Dr. Kiesinger holds a bachelor's degree from Wilkes University, a master's degree from the University of Virginia, and her doctorate from the University of South Florida. Please help me welcome Dr. Kiesinger.
It's not about the iced tea. It never was, and it really never is. Let me introduce you to Grace. Grace was a woman in her mid-60s who sat smack dab center in the middle of a sea of 20-year-olds. 20-year-old undergraduate students who were wildly enthusiastic about learning everything they could know about the art and science of close relationships. I was a fairly new professor. I was in my mid-20s and I was teaching a course called Communication and Close Relationships. And on this day, the topic was, what makes relationships fulfilling? What makes them flourish? What makes relationships last? Well, the 20-year-olds had their hands up, they were shouting out all the answers, and then Grace's hand went up. And her hand went up slowly. And her hand went up with hesitance. And her hand went up with great humility. And the room went very quiet. I looked at her, the students looked toward her, and you could hear a pin drop. We had never before heard the sound of her voice. I think I knew what my students knew. I think I knew and they knew that whatever was about to come out of her mouth was going to be solid gold. And she didn't disappoint. 31 years later, in this moment, I can still hear the sound of her voice. I remember what she said, and I'm so grateful that I remember, because now I can share it with you. I want to share what she told us, what she taught us about what makes relationships flourish and last. Here is what she said. I was married for 35 years to my husband, Thomas. And I lost him just 4 months ago to a really aggressive cancer. We have 2 daughters, they're launched, they're raised, and one of the things that I promised him in the last weeks of his life is that I'd go back to school. We had a good marriage. We had our highs and lows, we had our ups and downs like any couple. But 35 years? I think I could say that we made it. And so when I hear the question, what makes relationships flourish and last? And I hear all of your answers, and you're right. I don't want to make anyone wrong here, but I sit here and I listen and I think I need to raise my hand. I think I know something about relationships. And there's something that I want to add. What makes relationships flourish and last is never about the big things. It's not about the things we see in movies or read in books. It's not about the vacations, the celebrations, the gifts, the anniversaries. It's not about the big gestures. What makes relationships flourish and last are the small gestures done repeatedly over time from a place of genuine care. Well, 26-year-old me heard all that. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she just nailed it. She knows something that I don't know and they don't know. She said it's not the big things, it's the small things, done repeatedly over time from a place of genuine care. And I wanted to know more, and she was ready to tell us more, because it's the small gestures done repeatedly over time from a place of great care and what they come to mean in the life of a relationship. Grace said, I miss a lot about my husband, but I want to tell you what I miss most. When we were dating, Thomas learned fairly soon that I do not like hot coffee or hot tea for breakfast. I like freshly brewed iced tea, preferably Earl Grey, with sliced lemon. And do you know that every morning of our marriage, that man got out of bed 20 minutes earlier than he needed to, went downstairs, put the kettle on, steeped the tea, poured it over ice, and then sliced the lemon. And every morning when I came down the stairs, the first thing that I saw was that tea on my placemat at the breakfast table. Every morning. It didn't matter what was happening around us or between us. That tea was there. That tea was there during phases of our marriage where we were really distant from each other. Like, I didn't even know if we were going to make it. It was there. That tea was there during times when we were utterly terrified. That tea was there when we were going through change and transition. That tea was there the morning after we learned that his cancer was terminal. That tea was there the morning of the arrival of hospice, who moved into our home. It was there. And you know what? I miss that iced tea. But it's not about the iced tea. It never was. It never is. It's about what it meant. I'd wake up in the morning and I would see that tea there. And no matter what was going on around or between us, I knew that this relationship was stable. It was safe. It was reliable. Our relationship was our safe place to fall. It was our safe place to fail. It was our safe place to fight. It was our safe place to forgive. It was our safe place to love. It was our safe place to connect. It was our safe place to grow. It was our safe place, in the end, to let go of each other. That iced tea every morning, it reminded me that I was seen. My husband saw me. I was never invisible in that relationship. To be seen for 35 years matters. The presence of that iced tea meant that I was significant. I mattered. I was valued, even when he couldn't stand to look at me. I knew I had value. I did a lot of crazy things during the marriage. That iced tea always seemed to be so stable. It was in a rock-solid glass. And when I'd look at it, I would think, you know what? Despite the crazy things I've done in this relationship and wanted to do, this man has my back. There was support there. But most importantly, that iced tea was a recognition of solidarity. We had each other's back. That matters. We had each other's back. Therefore, neither of us ever felt alone in our marriage. I miss him. I miss that tea. But remember, it's not about the iced tea. It never was, it never is. It's about the small gestures done repeatedly over time from a place of genuine care. That's what I believe had our marriage flourish and endure. I openly wept in class hearing Grace tell her story about Thomas and the iced tea. And I remember thinking, what do I know? I know the scholarship, I know the research, I'm capable of teaching about relationships, but what do I really know? I do not have the lived experience of this woman. And she just shared solid gold with us. And I remember thinking this, and I want all of you to think this now with me, like I thought it 31 years ago. How would my life be different? How would your life be different? If you could say, of all of your relationships, personal and professional, if we could all say, this is a relationship where I feel safe, physically and emotionally. This is a relationship where I feel seen. I am not invisible. This is a relationship where I feel significant, unquestionably valued. This is a relationship where I feel supported. This is a relationship where I feel we are in solidarity, never alone. How would your life change? How would your love change? How would your leadership change? If you could be the one to show up and offer safety, the capacity to really see others, if you could offer that sense of significance, that sense of support, that sense of solidarity, no one here is alone, what would change? These are the things that I was thinking about. And that story and others like it over the years really helped me to form this idea that there are 5 core elements that form the foundation at a baseline of relationships that flourish and last. And they are these 5 things: safe, seen, significant, support, and solidarity. Imagine what would happen to the people in your life, the people you love and the people you lead, if you could come from that place in all of your communication, in all of your interaction, where indeed, in your presence, they feel safe, seen, significant, supported, and in solidarity. That's what today's session is about. How do we cultivate that? Because what happens when we cultivate and sustain those qualities in relationship is we build something. We build something where individuals really feel that they can become the highest, most optimal versions of themselves. We get to assist in that. We get to bring that possibility forth. Because we have made a commitment that this is how we're going to do relationships. This is how we're going to do the work of relationships. Let the 5 S's be your North Star of sorts, your compass, so that when things begin to go awry, you can ask yourself, oh, in this moment, how did I fail here to make this person feel safe, seen, significant, supported, and in solidarity? Or when you're feeling any of these ways off about a relationship you're in, asking yourself the same question: am I being seen? Do I feel safe? Am I valued? Am I supported? Are we in solidarity? I think that everyone here has what they might call their truest truth. And this is my truest truth. And my truest truth is at the foundation of all the work that I do, whether it's leadership development training, executive coaching, personal coaching, whatever it is, personal development. This is at the foundation, and it is this sentence: the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. Take that in. The quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. It is no other way. There couldn't be anything more important than having quality relationships if you want to have a quality life. And because this is a leadership conference, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that leadership is, above all things, relationships. The capacity to build, sustain relationships, the capacity to repair them when they break down, and sometimes to even transform them when we need to. And so the quality of your leadership is directly linked to your capacity to create and maintain relationships. So think about those 5 S's. And are they present in the way that you live, in the way that you love, and in the way that you lead? They're right here. Take a screenshot if you want to. This will change your life. So because I'm in the business of relationships, and have been for a very long time, more often than not, people are not asking me, how do I have a healthy relationship? They're asking me, am I in a toxic one? When I'm invited into a company, it's not, necessarily help us to get better at the healthy relationships we have. It's help us to identify pockets of toxicity. And how do we know that we're toxic, that we've gone toxic? It's really easy. Just think of the opposite of these things. And that might sound funny, but it's actually incredibly serious. Because if it's true that the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives, then if we're not in quality relationships, the quality of our lives suffer in ways that are very detrimental to our health, to the degree that they can rob us of years of our lives. So what are some of those qualities really named? They're right here. Relational toxicity. Number 1 is lack of psychological safety, which is another way of saying, I do not feel safe here. I don't feel safe here physically. I don't feel safe here emotionally. I don't feel safe here relationally. Now, psychological safety, right before the pandemic, when she published her book, The Fearless Organization, Amy Edmondson brought this phrase, psychological safety, into our consciousness. And basically, the gist of her entire book, you don't even need to read it, is this. If psychological safety does not exist in an organization, there is no trust. And bottom line, if there is no trust, it affects our bottom line. Things are not going to work in the way that we need them to work. And when we don't feel psychologically safe, it means at work we don't feel safe to raise our hand. We don't feel safe to raise our hand and say, this doesn't seem right to me. We don't feel safe to raise our hand and say, I have a different idea. I have a new way of wanting to do this. We don't have a safe way of questioning, of participating, of offering our ideas. Because we fear we will be diminished, shut down. We fear that perhaps there will be repercussions. So that's how psychological safety shows up in the workplace. But think about what that means in a close relationship, like a marriage, like a long-term partnership, such as in a family. If individuals don't feel safe enough to say, this is who I am. I like to say the safety piece is really about, remember what Grace said. She said, this relationship was a safe place for us to fall, to fail, to fight, to forgive, to love, to grow, and then in the end, to let go of each other. And I remember thinking, that's the kind of relationship where they both felt they could be fully self-expressed. If you've ever had the experience of being fully self-expressed, there's nothing like it. That's like your soul, your humanity being lived. There's nothing like it. So lack of psychological safety is toxicity in the workplace and at home, in personal relationships. Invisibility. Invisibility is mental cruelty, is emotional cruelty. I remember working with a couple many years ago. There's moments in my life, and I know there's moments in your life, where you never ever forget something. Like, I don't forget Grace. I'll never forget this moment either. This story was probably 20 years ago. I was working with a couple. They were in what I call discernment. Are we going to stay together or are we going to part? And they were being very intentional about it. I remember I was interviewing them one-on-one, and one of the things the husband said to me, I said, what will it take? What's it going to take for you to stay together? What do you think needs to change? And he said, Christine, if I came home at the end of the day and I walked in the door and I saw my wife, whom I haven't seen all day, and if she just looked at me, she doesn't have to say anything, but if she just looked at me with eyes that said, hey, I'm glad you're here. That story stays with me because I've heard so many stories like that. I've heard stories of individuals in long-term committed relationships, some of them marriages, some of them not, that would say things like, I actually think I could walk around in a paper bag and no one would notice. It's that invisibility. That invisibility is counter to significance and counter to being seen. In organizations, I've heard more times than I can count, I don't think that our senior leader even knows my name. I'm not certain of why my colleague keeps calling me something else. Like, we have to work at seeing people. We're so busy, we have to work at seeing people. Like, really seeing them. And seeing them doesn't mean, oh, I see that you've got pink pants today. And I see that you've got beautiful earrings today. Seeing is, I see that even though you're smiling, you might be hurting today. I'm listening, and I'm hearing, and I'm seeing that what you're saying is counter to how you're saying it. Something's wrong. We're paying attention. That's how we see others. We pay attention beyond what our physical eyes can see, beyond what our physical ears are actually hearing. Think about the times in your life when you weren't seen and how painful that is. Disconfirmation. Here's the message of disconfirmation. Disconfirmation is a communication term that's used to describe this message. If I am with you in a disconfirming way, which by the way is saying you are not significant, you do not matter, here's my message to you. I don't see you. I don't hear you. I don't value you. What you say, think, and feel does not matter to me and really has no power in the world. I don't see you. I don't hear you. I don't acknowledge you. What you say, think, and feel just doesn't matter. There are 1,000 ways in which we convey that message. I remember at one point my kids were really little. One of them said, why is it that we ask you a lot of questions and you give us different answers when you're on your laptop? Whew, wake up call. I wasn't seeing them, I wasn't hearing them, and really whatever it was that they had to say didn't matter. So bad people don't do relationally toxic things. We all do these things. But it's really a matter of looking at the frequency of it, the intensity of it. But that's what disconfirmation is. It is making someone feel less than significant. You always know you're in a disconfirming moment when someone is speaking with you or interacting with you and suddenly you feel very, very small. Did that ever happen? It's like you shrink. It's called diminishment. Communication that diminishes. I might even be standing tall, but inside I feel like I just became very, very small. Neglect is the toxic counterpart to support. Do what you want to do, but don't ask me for help. When it comes to support, I don't have to really agree with you, but I can support you. That's what we do in a healthy relationship. Oh, and solidarity. Solidarity is really big. And the toxicity, the opposite of solidarity, really is loneliness. We've heard people say, there's even sort of this phrase, there's nothing more lonely than being in a relationship when you're lonely, or a marriage where you're lonely, or a workplace environment that promotes positive culture and you're lonely. Before the pandemic, Dr. Vivek Murthy published a series of 7 articles in Harvard Business Review. They were chilling articles about workplace loneliness. And he was describing it as the epidemic of our time. And that when someone is lonely at work, a person is more likely to leave their place of employment because they don't feel connected, they don't feel like they belong, they don't feel like they're part of something, they feel lonely. They're more likely to leave that job over the job itself. So a lot of times when we're thinking about why are we not retaining people, we really need to think about this. Is the culture such that they don't feel lonely? And Dr. Vivek Murthy's study indicated that individuals who feel lonely at work, that the impact that has on their physical body is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's that toxic to our well-being to be lonely at work. So if you're wondering, well, what does toxicity look like? It's here. Lack of psychological safety, invisibility, disconfirmation, neglect, and the experience of loneliness. So where do we begin? So the 5 S's: safety, being seen, support, significance, solidarity. They don't necessarily flow in any particular order except the first one. We've got to begin at the beginning. The precondition for a relationship that is going to flourish and thrive absolutely is safety. Physical and emotional safety. I say it's a precondition because just think about how you came into the world, how vulnerable you were. Your top need was safety. Why do we think that goes away? In fact, I think it's a deal breaker for many relationships. Again, when people come and they're discerning, should we stay in this relationship? Should we leave? Where's the trust? Do you both feel safe? Because if you don't, we have hard work to do, or this isn't going to work. Very sensitive. So when we can say of ourselves, I feel safe in this relationship, personally and professionally, we're really talking about physical and emotional safety. And I really want you to link that to this idea that this is a place where I feel I can be fully self-expressed. You are seen. You are not invisible to me. You are not invisible in this relationship, in this marriage, in this family, on this team, in this workplace. You are significant. Remember, the message is what you say, what you think, what you feel matters. I don't have to agree with you, but it matters. I support you. So remember, Grace said, I did a lot of crazy things in the marriage, but he always felt like, he had my back. He was at my back. So one of the things that I do, because I just love to do it, is that I officiate weddings. And one of the things that I often talk to couples about, especially younger couples, are their aspirations for their marriage. It's a really interesting question. Try this sometime. When you're with a couple that's getting married, say, what are your aspirations for your marriage? Their mouths drop. Oh, never thought about that before. That's a really important question. There are all kinds of reasons why we're getting married. Love's just not enough. And I think that a really beautiful way to think about a partnership, whether it's a business partnership, whether it's in your capacity as a leader and in a love relationship, is, can I support you to the degree that what we share, this relationship, becomes the platform from which you're just going to soar? If that's present, this is a relationship that's going to flourish and thrive. And again, this isn't just about love. A marriage, imagine what that looks like in parenting. Like, I'm going to be with you in such a way that what we share together is going to be your platform from which you can soar. In leadership, can you imagine how this would change your leadership? If your central concern was, I am so invested in your development that I want what we share together to be the platform from which you're going to soar. And you know what? I've heard from more than one leaders who say, like, one of the most gratifying things I've ever experienced is someone I helped launch to the degree that they left. They went somewhere else because that's how much they grew. And think about that for yourselves as well. Are you in relationships with people that really care about being the platform from which you're going to soar? Finally, we are in solidarity. We are not alone. And that's really, truly important. I'm going to take a look at the time here because I would like to invite some questions if we have time. But before I do any of that, there is something really important that I want to share with you, which is really linked to another project that's my passion project right now, and maybe the most passionate project of my life. I've talked about this interpersonally today, opening with Grace's story, that the 5 S's were present in her marriage, all illustrated through the presence of that iced tea. But here's what I've come to learn. I think it is amazing to offer those you love and lead safety, being seen, significant, supported, and solidarity. Do you notice how many times I've said that? Because I want you to leave with those 5 things in your brain. So it's wonderful to give that, and many of us here have a tremendous capacity to give that to others. But you know what makes it ever more powerful? When you have given it to yourself first. Do a U-turn. Many of you are probably sitting here thinking about those you love and those you lead, and the 5 S's, and are they there? And are they there with you? What do you do? What have you done in your life to make sure that you are safe? That you are physically safe, that you are emotionally safe, and mostly we do that through the boundaries we construct because we so deeply love and respect ourselves that we won't put ourselves in an unsafe position. When was the last time you saw yourself? And by seeing yourself, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's, you might look in the mirror, brush your hair, look. Do you ever just stop and think, wait a minute, I've been looking in this mirror every morning for the last, 50 years, and I don't think I've ever really seen myself. I didn't know that there were these flecks of different colors in my eyes. Or that maybe the shade of lipstick really doesn't work. Or wait a minute, I think I'm seeing what they say is like the soul behind the eyes. I'm seeing more here. It means that, but it also means, are you acutely aware of who you are? Have you made yourself invisible to yourself? Think about it. How can I better see myself? Do I matter to me? This might sound simple, but in some of the organizations I work in, when people raise their hands and say something like, I don't ever eat lunch. I either forget or there's just not time. It's a very simple example. But you matter. You matter enough to eat lunch. Do you value yourself with the same level of intensity with which you value close friends or those that you love? Do you? Sometimes the most powerful form of support is your own. It's like when you're standing on your own 2 feet and you think, in this moment, there isn't anybody for me to call upon, but I've got this. I feel at my back myself. I can stand on my own 2 feet. I can feel my physical spine, which supports this body, and that spine is symbolic of the strength that I have that was born out of years and years and years of experiences that may have taken me to the floor, but helped me to develop resilience and strength. Are you in solidarity with you? Do you stand by you? Do you stand behind you? Or are you working against yourself? I've had way too many experiences in my own life where I was against myself. I abandoned myself. There was no solidarity coming from me. So what this connects to is a different speech. But I bring it in because it's so critically important. Because the 5 S's are what makes relationships thrive, flourish, and last. And it begins with you. But to take us full circle, it's not about the iced tea. If you ever forget the message of today's talk, all you have to remember is it's not about the iced tea. It never was, it never is. It's about what it meant. I am safe. I am seen. I am significant. I am supported. I am in solidarity. We are at time. If you need me, have questions, reach out. We're at time, right? Were you waving at me? I go into a trance. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the conference.